Hello and welcome to another episode of the All About Ability podcast. Today we are joined by Gavin Oattes.
This podcast is sponsored by Kyle Financial, specialists in mortgages and protecting your family's finances. Whether you're looking for the best mortgage for you or want to make sure you and your family aren't struggling if you are seriously ill or pass away, call Kyle Financial on 0141 447 0290 or email advice@kylefinancial.co.uk for more information.
Gavin recently released a book earlier this year called Life Will See You Now. I found it really relatable. A lot of what he speaks about is things that we've all gone through, and it really strikes a core with you. And I really enjoyed reading it. And then a lot of what he says here, when you look at us going into another lockdown, this conversation should really help a lot of people out there with what we're all having to deal with and isolating and with the COVID situation. So I took a lot from it, and I think it will help a lot of people out there. So I hope you enjoy this one. Okay, so I'm here with Gavin Oattes. How are you doing today, mate? How's it going?
I'm really good, Kieran. Just firstly, mate, a big thank you for having me on the podcast. I've been hearing great things about you, mate, so I'm excited.
Well, I can echo it right back to you. I've been starting to read your new book now, World Will See You Now, and it's really quite motivating and inspiring. Everything you talk about it. What was the kind of motivation behind that for you?
So this is my first solo book, Life Will See You Now, and it's one of those things where I had the chance to co-author other books before this one, so that was a nice way to kind of break me in to writing books, if you like. And there was always that question of, can I do it myself? Like, can I actually write one just me? Have I got enough to say, have I got anything that anybody's going to want to read or listen to? But after writing the other books as a co-author, my confidence was up, and it was something that I'd always wanted to do. I mean, I'm 41 now, and ever since probably the age of about 18, 19, I've wanted to write my own book that goes out there and makes a proper difference in the world. And I just wanted to write a book that people could relate to. This is not a typical self-help type of book. There's not one of these, it doesn't claim to have a route map to happiness or anything like that. It's just very honest, very real stories about my background, my brain, my own mental health, and some of the ups and downs that I've experienced in my career. And the feedback's been great, mate. So I'm excited to hear how you get on with it.
Yeah, no, I'm really enjoying it. I mean, I'm through the first couple of hours. I'm really it's quite, like you say, it's really relatable. A lot of these kind of books can be quite like cliche, and you end up being like, yeah, I've heard this before, but a lot of your stories are really relatable, and the way you convey it.
Yeah, good. Well, I was I hoped it would be very real, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's loads of great self-help books out there, and there's many books out there that are far more successful than mine, but it can be a bit I don't know, just a bit wishy-washy sometimes for me, and I quite like to just get to the point and cut a good swear word in there for good measure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, your want to help people seems to come through quite evidently in it. And it made me wonder, like, a lot of people, for me, developing that kind of mindset of trying to want to help people and things like that was a really long process. Where did that come for you, and why did you have this sort of deep want to help people so much?
So I think it goes way back to, so my mum was a PE teacher when I was a wee boy, and when my mum had me, as many working mums do, she took some time out from her job. But on an evening, she was teaching things like gymnastics. She was doing swimming classes and occasionally coaching hockey and things like that. And from a very, very young age, I would either tag along or go and watch, or always had questions from mum about her job, because early on, mum wasn't working during the day, but she would disappear out night and teach sport. And I found this fascinating. But then when she went back to work, my mum actually became the principal teacher of PE at a school in Ayrshire, which was a school for children with additional needs. And my brother and I've got an older brother. We used to hear all these incredible stories every single day about a swimming gala or a gymnastics competition or a group of the pupils from a mum's school who were going to run the local fun run or half marathon. And there was just always these brilliant stories about young people achieving great things. It just, every day there seemed to be something really inspiring. And I used to ask my mum a lot, and I used to ask if I could come and help. And that's exactly what started to happen from a very, very young age. So I always had this sort of thought that maybe I should be a PE teacher as well. And originally I did think about being a PE teacher, but I'm not really sure why, but my mindset changed a little bit, and I decided to go down the primary school teaching route instead. Oh, mate, I loved it. You know, this opportunity to stand up every day in front of, 25 kids from 9 o'clock till 3:30 and entertain them and enlighten them and educate them and just take them on this wonderful journey. And my little challenge to myself every day was to make sure that every kid leaves the classroom absolutely buzzing, wanting to come back the next day, because you'll know what it's like. You know, when you're a kid, there's teachers who do make you feel like that, and then there's the ones, let's be honest, who probably shouldn't be teachers in the first place. And so from a very young age, Kieran, listening to my mum talking about all these success stories of these young people, particularly in that sports setting, and I was a big fan of rugby and things like that, and I just thought, I want a bit of that. So that's where it started.
It's amazing how the kind of impact someone can have on you like that from such a young age, and how you've kind of carried it on. I was watching this video earlier of you were talking about when you first started teaching, and I thought it was really, like, it really hit home for me, because you were speaking about different, how teachers the kind of impact they can have on you, and you spoke about how your first day coming in, it was very dejected atmosphere, and how this woman came in and sort of changed it all just from her presence. What was that whole start of that experience like for you?
Well, do you know, when I was so nervous that day, we had already had, I think, probably, maybe 3 weeks in uni at that point. So that's like just lectures and workshops and stuff. And that had been really exciting. And some of the tutors were brilliant. And I was thinking, do you know what? This is the start of my 4-year teaching degree. This is going to be brilliant. But of course, the big moment you're waiting for is exactly that. It's going out to school for the first time. It's getting up in front of a class for the first time and getting to know them. And so I was excited. I was incredibly nervous. And I remember arriving at the school. The head teacher was at the front door welcoming everyone in, and she seemed a bit scary. The first thought that I had was scary wee woman. And by the time we got into the staff room, there'd already been a strange feeling for me with this particular head teacher. She just didn't seem particularly warm and welcoming, which, I expect that in every workplace, not just in schools, obviously. I would hope that it doesn't matter where you go, you walk in the front door, I would just hope that people are warm and welcoming, but hey, that's just me. And I got into the staff room, and there was just this very unique vibe in the room that morning. It was a Monday morning, and I was thinking, is it because this is a Monday morning? And I'm thinking, but, they've just had 2 days off, and surely if you've just had 2 days off, then you turn up on a Monday buzzing, like raring to go to come and do the thing that it is that you've not only chosen to do, but accept a wage every month to do, I'd already been told that I couldn't sit on a certain seat, I couldn't drink from a certain mug. It was really odd, and I was thinking, this is not the perfect picture that I had in my mind of going into the world of education. Now, don't get me wrong, most schools are amazing and welcoming. It just so happened that this was the first one that I experienced. And I remember standing there thinking, I don't know if I want to be a part of this anymore, which I've always, every time I say that, I think, because a few people have asked me about this story, and I think the fact that I thought about leaving my dream job, 20 minutes into walking through the front door is crazy, because that was based entirely on people's moods, people's mindset, people's attitudes, people's conversations, certain individuals' faces. We all know those ones, the ones that just have a face that ruins other faces. I always think about that and think that's awful, for somebody to feel that way just because of a grown-up's behaviour, But anyway, I had that moment where I thought, do you know what, Gavin, you're just here, just just try and tune into some conversations, maybe learn some names. And I'm glad I didn't leave, because it all changed with the introduction of one member of the team. And as you'll have seen in the video, I described this woman as my Mary Poppins. She just floated into the room like Mary Poppins, practically perfect in every way, if I can quote the movies and the books directly. And I always say to people, it's like she had rays of light just coming out her face. It just lit the room up. And people seem to relax, smile. The tone of the conversations changed. The sort of energy in the room lifted a little bit. And I just remember thinking, who are you? Like, you've not even opened your mouth. You just needed to turn up. And I just thought, how do you get to a point where you just need to walk in the front door, and you've obviously built up the relationships in a way where you can have that kind of impact? And it straight away made me think about all the types of teachers that I had met as a kid, especially the ones who had amazing positive impact on me and my life. And it made me think of my mum and all these amazing stories that I heard from her as a kid. And it was in that moment I was like, yeah, this is where I'm meant to be. Certainly for just now. I mean, obviously I'm not a teacher anymore. I've not been in the classroom for many years, but in that moment I was like, yeah, I'm in the right place. And it is incredible how these individuals can have an impact on you. And right from that moment, Kieran, I just thought I have to go out my way every day to be like her. I am Mary Poppins. I'd never had that thought before, but I was ready to channel my inner Poppins.
It was just such a cool story. We'd never listening to it and hearing you speak about it. So I wanted to kind of recap it, and I was just speaking about it just now. It got me wondering, when you're talking about kind of those negative people and how they perceive things, and how much a negative influence can have on your own mind and what you're thinking about it.
I think. Go for it.
No, I was just going to say, what do you think those kind of people can do to sort of change their mindsets and take steps towards being more positive?
Yeah, I think. Well, firstly, I think they could try a bit harder. You're absolutely right. I mean, these individuals have a huge impact on all of us. I mean, I've often thought throughout my career, whether it was teaching, whether it's running my business, even as a teenager, like the part-time jobs that I had, I always remember it would just take one person, just one, to be continually negative, continually critical, continually miserable. The types that just always moaning and complaining. And we're all entitled to a moan and a groan, and sometimes it's good to have a bit of a moan, but it just takes one to ruin it for everybody else. And I'm using the word ruin deliberately because it really does ruin it. So I think every now and then people need a wee sort of check. We need to kind of stop and take a wee step back and think, right, who am I being? Am I? I always think this stuff is about how I choose to act. It's about how I choose to behave. It's about how I choose to communicate. It's about how I choose to have impact every single day or not. And I believe that some people, maybe subconsciously, but some people are choosing to be difficult, choosing to be confrontational, choosing to be negative. And I just think, Kieran, it must be absolutely exhausting. It must be exhausting to be the person who every single day goes out their way to ruin it for other people. So I think every single day we should all just take a moment to think, right, where am I at? Am I in the right mindset today? Am I having a positive impact? Am I having a negative impact? I think the unfortunate thing is I think there's an awful lot of people out there who don't even know they're doing it. There's those who do know who they're doing it, and I think some of them love it, Kieran. I think some of them absolutely love being like that, which is a shame. If it was me and I was their boss, I would fire them. But I think the reality is some people don't know they're doing it, or a lot of people don't know they're doing it. And I think people need to tell them. I read a brilliant book a few years ago called Legacy by a guy called James Kerr. It's all about the New Zealand All Black rugby team. It's not actually about rugby, but it's all about the All Blacks. And they've got this brilliant mantra, or they've got loads of brilliant mantras, but one of them is stab me in the front. And it's all about giving feedback, constructive feedback. And it's this idea that, you might not like me, you might not like what I do, we might not see eye to eye, or you just think I could be doing better, and so you tell me to my face. And it's this idea that you just say it to my face, tell me what you think, but the deal is that I will react with humility and respect and kindness. I think if we could get into that way of thinking in every workplace, and call people out, if 2 or 3 days have gone past and somebody's moaning and complaining about everything, I think we need to call them out. I think we need to tell them to their face, and if they don't like it, tough.
It's so true, because everyone's built on their own experiences and what they've been brought up to believe and things like that. And there's certain things that may be obvious to me and you, but if you're brought up in a certain area or certain circumstance that you don't see these things, you don't really see the way in which you're interacting with someone. It takes someone that knows to say, hey, you can't be doing that. That's not right, the way you're talking to people. And it takes someone to say it to your face sometimes. So you're spot on with what you say there. And I think that it's kind of one of those things where not enough people are saying it, not enough people are being direct, especially in this kind of day and age where it seems like people are almost worried to speak out. Especially,
I think you're right. I think people are being so careful, aren't they? And I get that. I understand. None of us love. Well, I'm sure someone does, but none of us really enjoy confrontation. We don't. No one wants to fall out with their colleague or their friend or a family member. But I think we do need to call out, though. But likewise, I think we have to call out the positivity as well. I think we need to. If somebody's going out their way to be really helpful and really supportive and really encouraging, we need to make sure we're calling that out as well and celebrating that and acknowledging that. And I've always kind of thought that by doing that, hopefully the kind of negative ones might hear and see that a little bit and maybe hopefully want a part of that as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's all based around, as a culture, we seem to promote negativity more than we promote positivity.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's one of those things that as human beings, it's like we see and hear negatives much easier than we do positives. And I always think like that, and I always think, well, I just need to make a bigger effort. I need to just try a wee bit harder to make sure that I am seeing and hearing and feeling the positives, because they are there. It's that old cliche that if you go looking for the problems, you find them. Why? Because they're absolutely everywhere. Of course they are. But at the same time, if you go looking for the opportunities and the possibilities, well, then you find them as well. And I think, I'm a real subscriber. As you'll read in the book, I'm a real subscriber to this idea that you are what you think, and thoughts become things. You look at this year, Kieran, 2020, wow. What a shit show 2020's been for everybody, and there's real negatives about 2020. However, I have a choice like everybody else. I'm having to work from home now. My entire career has been on the road, on my feet, on stages all over the world, all over the country, talking to big crowds of people or delivering a workshop. Whereas now I don't leave the house. I do this. I do exactly as I'm doing with you now. I'm on Zoom, or I'm on Teams, or I'm on Google Meet, and I'm talking into a camera, and I've got my audience on the screen. And this is completely new. But do you know what? I get to see my kids in the morning. Yeah. There's a positive. Yeah. I get to walk my daughter to school every day, which I haven't ever been able to do in the 5 years that she's been in primary school, because I'm always up and away, either on a train or in the car or on a plane, going somewhere. I get to see my kids when they come in from school. I get to sit down at the dinner table with my wife and kids now and actually join them for dinner because I'm at home. And so this has been a tough year, for businesses, especially businesses like mine who are reliant on rooms full of people. It's been really, really challenging, but I have to look at the positives. I have to look at the silver linings, or else I would just make myself ill with worry and stress and all sorts. So I think, like I say, I'm a firm believer that you are what you think, and that thoughts become things, and we all need to take time to think about how we think.
Yeah, it's so true. I kind of live by the phrase, if you have everything but you're grateful for nothing, you don't really have anything at all. So it's
so true, mate. Love it.
It's all about having that kind of mindset. And you mentioned there your business and how the kind of work you have there. What was the transition like from being a teacher to doing what you do now?
So it was, to begin with, it was kind of terrifying because I'd spent 4 years at university and then about 1.5 to 2 years teaching. So almost 6 years of my life were dedicated to being in the classroom and getting ready to educate young kids. But I remember at the back of my mind there was always just this thing that, as much as I loved teaching and wanted to be in the classroom, there was just maybe some other way of doing this. And by this I mean making a difference. Now, one of the things I've not mentioned, but again you'll see it in Life Will See You Now, is that in amongst all of this I had started doing stand-up, and I had started to find my way in the comedy world. I was one half of a double act for a few years from a young age, and I had started to get that real, addiction to laughter, to getting up on stage, that real buzz of entertaining that crowd. And I discovered quite quickly with teaching that it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same thing. You're there to entertain, enlighten, and in some way educate. You want people to walk away from your gig buzzing. You want people to walk out your classroom buzzing. You want to make a difference. And this was, the two of them started to overlap a little bit for me. And one day I went on a workshop that was all about putting the fun back in the staff room. And I just thought, I think this will be rubbish. Like a workshop all about putting fun back in the classroom. I can't think of anything worse. And I was so wrong. But again, here's the shift in mindset, because back then, this was me looking at that going, this will be crap, can't be bothered, I'm too busy, I've got stuff to do. But actually what I should have done is thought, this might be brilliant. I don't know who this guy is. It could be the best workshop ever. It's worth a shot. And when I got in, within 10 minutes, I was in tears of laughter and I felt great. And then 3 hours later, we came to an end and I walked away absolutely buzzing, and I thought, that's his job. I want to do that. And I actually quit my job that day. And phoned the guy that was running the workshop and asked him for a job, and he said yes. And then I thought, what have I done? like this is, I've just spent 6 years of my life to get to where I am, and now I'm on the verge of just chucking it. And then I thought, well, do you know what? I can give it 6 months or a year if necessary, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I joined him, and we started creating workshops for teenagers. Now that terrified me, Kieran, because my whole mindset was children from the age of 3 to 11. That's what I specialised in. But all of a sudden there was 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds. I was like, my God, this is really scary. And I was absolutely terrified getting up for the first time, because the way our workshops were working, it was like 50 or 60 teenagers in a room for half a day, and then the other half of the year group would come in the afternoon. Depending how big the school was. And I just remember getting up there for the first time, and I had 2.5 hours to run this workshop. And of course, every one of them's just sitting there looking at me as if to go, right, motivate me then, mate, come on. And I was probably 20, I think I was probably about 24 at the time. So I was quite young. I mean, they're 16, 17. I'm not much older than them at that point. But I tell you, right from the off, I was just in my element, Kieran. It really was like stand-up comedy meets teaching, except at the end, people would tell me I've changed their life, or I've given them some confidence, or I would get an email saying, all of a sudden, you've made me believe in myself, or actually, I've decided I'm going to study more, not worry about what my mates think about me, and I'm going to stop stressing about being one of the cool kids all of a sudden. And every day, this feedback started coming in. And again, I guess I just got addicted to that. I got that bug of making a difference. And I felt that because I wasn't in the one classroom with the one class every day, as much as I loved that, I was getting to travel the country. And like, okay, it's a slightly different way of making a difference, because in a classroom with primary school kids, you've got them for a year and you get to really see that difference that you make.
Yeah.
It's a bit more, you drop in and you leave, which is not always the best way to do it, but I loved it, absolutely loved it. And those workshops just grew arms and legs, and then we started doing more with teachers and more with parents, and then eventually I actually led a management buyout in that business, and we started again, and that was 11.5 years ago now, and it's grown into the sort of corporate world as well. And so we don't just work with young people anymore, we work with big businesses as well. But the thing that sits at the centre of it all is this idea of making a difference and inspiring the world. Because really, adults are all just big kids, let's be honest.
It's so true, because you kind of grow up thinking eventually someone's going to be able to tell me what's going on here.
We don't know. How old are you, Kieran? What age are you?
I'm 23.
Yeah, I mean you're not that young anymore, but you are. You're very young, but you're not that young. And I'm saying that to make myself feel better. You're very young, but you're right. You're 23. It doesn't, I mentioned earlier I'm 41, and I honestly, dude, I don't have a clue. I'm making this up every single day. I mean, you find your way to a certain extent and you get better at certain things and you build new relationships and you get better at communicating and all that sort of stuff. But I'm making it all up, mate. I think winging it is a good skill. It's a good skill to have because especially nowadays, I mean, teenagers going through school, the phrase they hear a lot now, particularly here in Scotland, is no wrong path. And it's this idea that, doesn't matter if it's college, uni, apprenticeships, training, volunteering, gap year, whatever, there will be a way that suits you, but it might not be the first one you choose. And I think I'm definitely a great example of that. There is no wrong path. You can jump around, but one day, if you keep working, you keep looking for it, one day we all find the thing that we're passionate about. It's just, I guess it's just eking out a wee career for yourself in that thing.
Yeah, totally. And it really relates to me because of the fact that when I think about this podcast, for example, I had put off doing it because in my head I'm thinking, I'll wait until I know what I'm doing. I'll wait till I know how to do it and I'll study it and I'll make sure. But no matter how much I researched it or no matter how much I prepared for it, nothing was going to make me able to do it other than just doing it and throwing myself into the fire, so to speak.
It's absolutely right. I think that's the same with everything, isn't it? I mean, I talk for a living and I write books for a living, and the amount of people that get in touch say, "Oh, I want to be a professional speaker," and what do I do? And I'm like, you do it. You just do it. Find whether it's online, with YouTube, because I mean, of course, I didn't have any of that stuff when I started out. Even when I started in stand up as well, there was no social media platforms to promote yourself.
Yeah.
I had to turn up at a club, knock the door and say, or phone and say, can I get 2 minutes or can I get 5 minutes? And I think that was just my mentality. My generation, you had to go and do it because you couldn't just drip feed stuff on YouTube and Twitter and let that slowly grow and build as you can now. But you're right, even with all that stuff out there now, especially with things like podcasts, the one way to do it and get better at it is to actually just go and do it. And it's funny because I actually did a similar thing. So I now have a podcast on a Tuesday night. Now it's not actually work related. It's more the comedy stuff, and it's called Show Offs, and it's on at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. And it's myself and my friend Kev, who I used to perform with for many, many years. And we talked about it for God knows how long. And then lockdown came and we're like, oh, we should do it. And we actually started by pre-recording. Actually, we were doing it exactly like this. We were doing it on Zoom, except we had, because it was lockdown, he was in his house, I was in mine, and we had our Zoom voice recorders as well as using actual Zoom to try and make sure the sound was perfect. And for us as performers, there was something just not right. And it was funny, we got to about episode 7 or 8 and we hadn't uploaded a single one, Kieran, which defeats the whole point of doing a podcast, because then nobody could hear it. And we were like, right, for us as performers, what's missing? And for us, it was just that live thing. So we actually switched platforms. We moved on to, I don't know if you're familiar with StreamYard. So we switched on to that, and now we go out live at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday night, and then it gets put onto all the usual platforms like Spotify and Amazon and so on. But it was funny because it wasn't until we actually just did it that we were like, oh yeah, this is how it works. I mean, we're rubbish at it, don't get me wrong. We've got a lot to learn. I can tell you right now, your setup's way more professional than ours. But it's fun. And I think there's an awful lot of people out there who would like to try something, whether it's a sport, whether it's a podcast, whether it's, having a shot at writing poetry or anything. And the advice is always just go do it.
And, it's interesting because I think the thing that stops people is this idea of failure and fear and what if it doesn't go to plan and doesn't succeed. But what was that like for you in the sense of, like, did you ever have a time where you felt a bit anxious and scared? And because I think when somebody sees someone like you, they think he seems like he's got it all together. He's never had any problems to deal with. You know, he's good to go. You know.
Yeah. So again, as the book talks about, there's a chapter in Life We'll See Now called "Confidently Lost," and this is a kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but it's a kind of rundown of what happened to me only 2 years ago. So if I can go back a few more years than that, as a teenager, Kieran, I had huge problems with anxiety and worry. I had this absolute want and desire to be on stage, to perform, and yet I couldn't do it. I couldn't put myself on a stage. And you know, I went to high school at a great drama department, a great music department, and I used to watch the kids that were doing drama and music, think, man, must be great to be able to just get up and perform and do that. But I never did it. I never went in for it. I never put myself forward. I was just too worried, too anxious about what people might say. And, you know, so I kind of focused on things like making it in the rugby team and trying to get in the first 15, but for all the wrong reasons. Like, I wanted to get in the first 15 just to be accepted, to be one of the lads. And I mean, I realise now it's just ridiculous. And unfortunately, there's so much pressure on teenagers to conform and be part of that crowd. And that's one of my, just a genuine regret of mine, that how I spent my time at school and the things that I put my worries and focus into rather than what I could have been putting my worries and focus into. So yeah, no, I had huge run-ins with anxiety. And as I got to university, it never really went away. I think what happened with me is I think I've learned to manage it. But like I say, I hit 2018 only 2 years ago. So what age was I? 30, 38, 39. And I took on too much. That year, my business was growing quite fast. I had a lot of employees in the business at that time, which brings lots of new challenges. My first book was coming out, so there was all that sort of pressure. I also had decided to book the Hydro in Glasgow, which is, for those that don't know, a 12,000-seater venue, and fill it with teenagers for free, and have this incredible big day of inspiration called Fire Up Scotland. And that was just born out of a crazy idea one day that I thought, I can do that. And I was absolutely capable of doing it. But all of a sudden, about halfway through the process of organising it, there was little seeds of doubt started appearing in my head. Things like, what if no one signs up? What if only 1,000 people turn up? Now, nobody has ever worried about only 1,000 people turning up to an event for teenagers. The difference is, if it was an event that held 1,000 people, that would be extraordinary. The problem is, I booked a venue that held 12,000. So if only 1,000 turn up, it looks rubbish. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what if no one signs up? This is going to be awful. What if I can't raise the money to pay for it? Because I don't have the money to pay for a 12,000-seater venue. So I had to get sponsorship and all that sort of stuff. And then all of a sudden, I found myself unable to sleep. Found myself having, somebody asked me about this recently. They read the book and they said, were you having panic attacks? I don't know. I don't think it was panic attacks, but it must have been, it was full on anxiety, but if it wasn't panic attacks, it was something not too far away from a panic attack. But what I did, I stuck to who I am, and that is that true performer. And I just performed my way through it, Kieran. I didn't tell anyone how I was feeling, which was mistake number one. You know, they always say if you're not feeling well, or if you're not right, or you're a bit down or worried, you talk to someone. And I know that because I tell other people that, and I always tell my kids that, but I didn't tell anyone, and I just performed my way through it. And then we announced the event, and all 12,000 seats get snapped up instantly. Now, you would think that this is a moment to be like, yes, this is the greatest thing ever. We've sold out well, it's free, but we've sold out the Hydro. We've filled it. There's 155 schools signed up. But what my brain did, well, I did think that. I went, oh my God, this is incredible. I'm so pleased. And then my brain went, yeah, but what if they don't turn up on the day? Like, why would you think that, Gavin? Why have I done this to myself? And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, what if they don't turn up? What if only 2,000 turn up? And what if I still can't raise the money? And I just started doubting myself. So to go back to something you said earlier, you know, people look at folk like me, who is the guy that writes all the books about positivity, who stands on stage and talks about mindset. But I also talk about my own dealings with my own mind and my own mental health. And the truth is, we're all human. And the truth is, we all have mental health. And I think the reality is that there's an awful lot of us out there who do get anxious and do worry and do feel a bit down. Occasionally our brains break. The important thing is, though, is that we accept that's who we are. We accept, and I mean, in the moment, you can always work your way through it. But in that moment when you're down, I mean, you have to be able to just accept it. Just go, do you know what? This is how I'm feeling right now, rather than, oh my God, and trying to fight it. Just have that moment where you take a big, deep breath, remember who you are. This is how I'm feeling right now. What am I going to do about it? And then you can start to work your way through it. So, yeah, it was funny. Somebody actually said a similar thing to me recently. Oh, you're just always so positive. No, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and do you know what? 2020's not been a positive year, mate. You know, this has been tough. This has been really tough. You know, the first sort of 3 weeks of lockdown, I just remember up through the night, pacing up and down, thinking, shit, what happens now? You know, we've just lost 150 events in 72 hours. No one prepares you for that. But in that moment, Kieran, I had a choice. And it was either do something about it or not. And I chose to do something about it. It wasn't fun. Wasn't exciting. It was absolutely terrifying. Like I say, sleepless nights. There was tears. Because, you know, it doesn't matter how experienced you are in what you do. Nobody taught you how to deal with a global pandemic. And then all of a sudden it was, right, kick into gear. Here's what we're going to do about it. Let's create an online offering. And off we went. And I can honestly tell you, it's only probably the last 3 weeks that I've started to feel excited again. Because we're not out the woods yet as a business, but we're at least going through the woods. We're climbing some trees to get through there. We're having to saw some trees down. We built a tree house. We're wading through the grass to get there, but there's a bit of light now at the end of the tunnel, and there's an awful lot of businesses in that same situation right now. And you know, my mindset right now is really important. Really important.
Exactly. That's what it really all comes back down to, because in those situations when you're not sure what's happening, you need to rely on having a strong mindset to say, I know I can deal with this and I know how to address this point. And obviously you've done that really well, because you can see that just now there's a lot of problems with mental health and people are really struggling with it. The rates of suicide are higher than they've been for a long time. And
yeah, they are.
Yeah, that. How do you obviously speak about how you've managed to deal with that throughout this time, but do you think that like suicide and mental health is something that's maybe not been talked about enough right now in this kind of situation?
Yeah, I think, do you know, I think there's positives in the discussion that's taking place out there. I think it is being spoken about more than it's ever been spoken about. I think there's more raising awareness happening by more charities and more individuals than ever before. So I think there are real positives out there. I think there's some great work going on around mental health, suicide awareness. Do I think we could be talking about it more? Absolutely. I think there needs to be an awful lot more education, an awful lot more money, huge amounts more money getting pumped into mental health. I think there's so many amazing people out there doing so much to, like I say, raise awareness and to educate and to help and support so many people. But, you know, there's so many people out there suffering in silence right now. I know that's a bit of a cliche, but there's so many people out there struggling, especially through 2020, people feeling very, very isolated. The flip side of this is it's actually benefited some people. You know, there's people who struggle with mental health have actually found this a positive experience because they've not had to be anywhere or do anything, and actually it's a time to stop and hopefully get well. But again, the other side is that there's an awful lot of people struggling with this. So I think there's so much great advice out there. I think my biggest takeaway from what happened to me in 2018, I mean, I had a full-on breakdown here in 2018, and like, I don't mind saying that out loud. There was a time where I felt quite embarrassed to say that, but I'm not embarrassed in the slightest. I actually think it's made me a better person. I think I've learned so much and been able to help so many other people. I don't want to go through it again because it was horrible. And it's tough for it was tough for my family as well. But I look at it now and I think, you know, the biggest takeaways for me were talk to people. And I know that's so obvious because they keep saying it, but it's amazing how when you're suffering from anxiety or depression or any of these things, you don't want to talk to anyone. But actually, it's so important that you talk to people, and that could be as simple as just saying to a friend or a loved one or a colleague, I'm not feeling myself right now, and I need someone to know. Because that can open up the most wonderful conversations. You might not find the right person straight away. The person you go to first that you might think is the best person to speak to actually might not be the best person. What I would say to people out listening to this, if they are struggling with their mental health, is notice the people that are making an effort to be in your life right now, because they're the ones that will sit and listen to you at 3 o'clock in the morning when all you need is for somebody to sit and listen to you at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And a couple of other things, write things down. Writing stuff down, and I don't mean typing, actually get a pen or a pencil, write down all your thoughts and how you're feeling. It's incredible how it just takes things out of your brain. And getting it down on paper, and don't forget to breathe. Breathe it. Yeah. It might sound very obvious. They say that not breathing is the number one cause of death, obviously. However, it's important that we remember those big deep breaths, write stuff down, talk to people, and there's loads of great stuff out there, but it's so... the other thing I was going to say there was, how the phrase that gets used a lot is, it's okay to not be okay. Writing my book, I was very worried about this, because my question to myself was, but is it okay? Is it okay to not be okay? Is it okay to put that out there into the world that actually you're not feeling okay right now? So when I wrote the book, albeit the book came out 2 years after this all happened to me, I was genuinely worried and concerned about putting this stuff in and how people would judge me. The truth is, people do judge you, but I mean, I got over that fairly quickly. But from putting this book out now, just before lockdown, I can honestly say that the feedback I've had so far lets me truly believe that it is okay to not be okay, and it is okay to put it out there to the world. So yeah, I think whilst I think there's great stuff happening, Kieran, there could always be more done.
There's so many great things you said there. It really kind of hit home with me, because your kind of example of 2018 sort of happened to me during the start of lockdown, if I'm being totally honest, which isn't something that I've... Okay. It's not really something that I've openly expressed, because of the fact that it was so recent, and you don't want to kind of be... And part of you is like, I'm not too sure if I want to let people know about that just now, but
well, you need to be comfortable talking about it. It took me a wee while. I actually started writing the book as I was coming out of my episode, and it took me months to get out of that. I might add, months. You don't, and it didn't only last 2 days. I can trace it back now, and I was probably 9 months leading into it. I can go right back now, and I can mark it all. And then there was the moment itself, and I was at my absolute lowest for 3 months. 3 months of just absolute torture in my own head. But then I was another 9 to 12 months coming out of that.
Yeah.
And it was only about at the end of that I found myself actually mentioning this to people. So, mate, you talk about it when you're ready to talk about it,
It kind of goes back to what you said earlier when you were talking about when you started doing what you're doing now, and it felt like you were doing exactly what you were supposed to be doing, and sort of found your purpose.
Yes. Well, purpose is an incredible thing, and when you find it, it kind of makes a lot of things feel okay,
Yeah, it's true, because I feel, even though that was maybe a few months ago, I feel the best place mentally and physically I've ever been, just because it comes back to that feeling of helping people and how you kind of get that. You get a buzz from that. I'm quite an addictive personality, and
yeah.
You kind of go through phases of having been addicted to certain things pretty easily. Do you have that kind of feeling of when you mentioned being sort of addicted to the feeling of helping people and being on stage? How difficult can that be to channel that in the wrong direction and then try to redirect it into the positive side?
Oh, I mean, I think it just takes that continuous effort and that always reminding yourself. I mean, we all have crap days, we all have tough times. We all get bored. We all get stressed. We all get frustrated. Things don't always go our way, and it's easy it's easy to be frustrated or angry, and like everybody else, it's the same. I think the way I often describe it is, if you're having like a really bad day or a bad week, let it in, right? Let it in, show it around, but make sure you show it the door. Make sure you give it that proper send off. The problem is, I think people let those negative thoughts and vibes in and just let them stay over for a bit. They move in, and it becomes part of their everyday life. You start attaching behaviours to it, and it goes back to what I said at the start here, and this idea that I'm a subscriber of the idea that you are what you think.
Yeah.
This idea that thoughts become things, and the more you allow yourself to think a certain way, the more you become that. It oozes out in everything you do and how you do it. So I think it's really easy to let it slip, though, mate. I do.
Yeah,
I think it gets easier with time. For me, this whole positive reinforcement and things like that, it's a bit like mindfulness. You have to practice at it. You have to give it some. You don't just wake up one day and go, yes, I'm now positive because I said a nice thing. You have to stick at it. Yeah. But over time, it becomes a part of who you are, and you notice it starts to positively influence the people around you. They notice a difference in you. They notice that you're happier. They start to seem happier. And I mean, there's actual science out there about how the ripple effect works. And, you being positive and upbeat influences a certain level of happiness in the people around you that influences them, and so on and so on and so on. So this stuff works. If we make an effort to be positive, it works, and you do end up benefiting other people as well, for sure, 100%.
Exactly. And what you touched on a point there that really, you say let it come in and then get rid of it, but like I think a lot of people have a habit of putting it in the back of their mind and not letting yourself feel it. You have to. This is what's going on right now. You need to sort of feel it and be like, "It's a bad moment right now," but you feel it and you process it and then you let it go.
I totally agree, and it's exactly what I was saying there about the when it comes to mental health. If you're feeling really anxious, for example, as I was, like in 2018, my thing was anxiety. So it wasn't depression or anything like that, but it was like unbelievably high levels of anxiety to the point, like I say, where I just had this nervous breakdown. And I mentioned earlier that you almost have to acknowledge it, like accept it, that right now this is, because like you say, you either try and push it out the way and it just keeps coming forward, or you're just like, oh my god, shit, fight it.
Yeah.
And in mindfulness, again, mindfulness has been a big thing for me. Mindfulness is one of those things where you have to almost kind of doff one's cap to it. You kind of go, okay, so right now this is happening, this is how I'm feeling, and then just that little bit of acceptance, in that moment can make all the difference. And I remember when I finally got that into my head, it was actually my wife Ali. She's like incredible, and she would always say to me, okay, so this is how you're feeling right now. You have to accept that. Okay, you maybe can't fix it right now, but you have to listen to what your body's telling you. And to begin with, it was so hard to get my head into that. And when I finally did, Kieran, you just felt that wee lift, off the shoulders and then out your head. And the more I got used to this, the more natural it became. And then I had to just start making that effort. So yeah, the brain's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and what you said there is so important, because for me, when I'm talking about like what I was went through in lockdown, a lot of that was because I thought I'd kind of been through all this stuff and came through it, and I'm doing all right, this is going well. But there was a lot of things that I kind of put at the back of my mind that I didn't think that I had done that. Do you know what I thought?
Yeah.
I thought I was doing good with it, and then when lockdown came and your life stops, all the distractions kind of stop, and you have a lot of time to think. And things start coming to the surface, and you go, I haven't really addressed this properly,
Yeah. Well, I think that's exactly what's happened to so many people. We have had this time to think and reflect, and as I said, though, we can use that really positively as well. We can use that time. But yeah, you're right. For many folk out there, there's stuff come to the forefront that we've just thought, wow,
yeah.
Okay. But listen, mate, it's great to hear that you're out of that now, or you're coming out of that,
Yeah.
and you'll need to dedicate a whole episode of your podcast to that, and because that'll help so many people.
Well, I'm sure that will come. I'm sure that will come down the line. But it's one of the things that's really helped me is talking to people like you and doing this podcast and seeing that it's not. I always felt like it was weird to be nice, like it wasn't cool. It's not. It's not really, when you think about the world and the media and things like that. They don't really promote being the nice guy, the nice person, the person that's overly generous.
Isn't that so sad? Isn't it so sad and so incredible that we even have these thoughts? Because you're right. If you looked at certain social media platforms, depending on who you follow, if you want, you could have the most horrible, negative, spiteful, awful, poisonous information pouring in through your eyes all day, every day if you want. But that's the great thing about social media, is you can unfollow, you can block, but most importantly, and this is the one that I think so many people out there, teenagers and older folk are forgetting, you can delete it off your phone. You can remove yourself from social media and actually choose to only read good things and surround yourself with good people. It is a choice. Somebody said to me recently, yeah, but that's not real life. Well, I'm sorry, but actually that is, for some of us, real life.
Yeah.
We want to be surrounded by positive people and absorb positive information. Cool. That's not to say we don't watch the news occasionally and find out what's happening in the world. I get it. But there's a lot of people sitting right now, especially during lockdown, scrolling and just absorbing hate. There's so much hate, and Twitter right now is a poisonous place if you want it to be. But again, people have to realise that they can come off of that. They don't have to be on it.
Yeah. And that thing you said about the person saying that it's not real life is so indicative of the idea that people don't, like I said about me, people don't even know that there's guys like you that have that mindset, that the positivity is an option. It is a choice. You can choose it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the great thing is it doesn't cost a penny. And it frightens me to think that there's people wake up every day and think, yeah, today I'm going to be a horrible person. Today I'm going to wake up and moan about the world and just complain about everything. Okay, if you want, but I'm not going to want to spend an awful lot of time with that type of person,
Yeah, there was a quote that you said that really struck a chord with me, and forgive me if I butchered this, but you said, don't be the best in the world, be what the world needs. Is that correct?
No, it's you're close. Yeah, well, no, yours was still good. You can have that one. That'll be for your book, mate. So no, it's something that I've challenged a lot of people in my talks around, and also now in the books, and it's this idea: are you trying to be the best in the world or the best for the world?
Yes.
If it's your football team, for example, are you trying to be best in the team or for the team? If it's a school, you're trying to be the best school in the community or for the community. And all we're doing is changing the word in to for, but actually that shifts everything. Like that shifts our entire mindset, and it completely changes the way we think. So yeah, to all your listeners and listening to this right now, I challenge them. Are you trying to be the best in what you do or for? Have a think about that, and things start to shift in your brain at that point.
It's so true, and it really struck me because when you just change that one word, the whole perspective of the sentence changes.
Yeah, it's true, mate. So true.
You just think about how, when I think about everything that I wanted to achieve and I just focused on myself, I never really got there. But when I started to focus on what the overall group needed, you end up getting what you want as an individual as well.
So true. It's so true. And if only more people read.
Exactly. So now that you've you've been doing this for a long time, you're on the path of exactly where you want to be, and you're doing things that you're passionate about. What do you see as next for you in terms of, have you got things in your head that you've not done that you're looking at and you're going, this is my next goal, this is my next target?
Yeah, I mean, certainly right now in the interim, it's getting through 2020. Like that a lot of my focus right now is as a business, we've very much, like every other business that's reliant on events, we've been very much in survival mode. So we're not out of that yet. things are on the up for us. It definitely looks better, albeit it's all digital at the moment, all virtual stuff. But it's been going really well. So that's my biggest priority at the moment. But beyond the immediate situation we're in right now, when it comes to the speaking side of things, I just want to speak at bigger, better, more exciting events. I found myself starting to host some pretty cool stuff. So not just speaking at it, but I'm getting to actually be on hosting duties, and I get to hold the whole thing together, and that's really cool. That's a bit different. I used to find that a bit daunting, but actually now I'm enjoying it an awful lot more than I used to. And then of course there's the books, mate. I'm working on another 2 books at the moment. So I've signed the contract. So one of them I'm allowed to tell you about, and that is so this is the sequel to a book that I wrote for kids about 2 years ago, called Diary of a Brilliant Kid, Top Secret Guide to Awesomeness. And that's for kids that are aged about 7 to about 11. So that's working on that just now. And then there's another one which I'm not allowed to talk about right now, but that's for the grown-ups again. So I'm quite excited about that. And then do you know one of my biggest priorities, mate, at the moment is my family, and trying to make sure that out the back of COVID and 2020, that all the good stuff that I've taken from it, as I mentioned earlier, more time with my kids and getting to sit down and have dinner with my family, and they might just sound like little things, but actually these are a big deal for me. And what I want to do is I have already done it. I've set myself a whole bunch of goals that are to ensure that when I don't think things will return to the normal that we knew, but when things are back to some kind of routine, that actually my priorities are a bit different now. Because I've also had a lot of time to reflect this year, and I need to make sure that I'm looking after my family, but also my own health and well-being. So that's probably going to be one of my big goals over the coming years, is to make sure that I get the balance a bit better, and make sure that I'm putting my time and energy where it should be, rather than where I think it has to be. That's what I'm going to do.
Definitely, mate. This has been a really fun conversation. It's one of the easiest ones I've ever done, and I think a lot of people.
Good.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to take a lot from what you said, and it's helped me even just listening to you speak and the whole vibe you give off. So thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you, Kieran, and let's do it again sometime.
Definitely, mate. Where can people find you on social media for the people listening to this?
So on Twitter, it's Gavin Oattes, and that's Oattes. That's a bit of a strange spelling. And then obviously LinkedIn, Facebook, I've got my speaker page on there as well. Again, just Gavin Oattes. I'm on Instagram. That's Gav Oattes, because I buggered up my first account and I don't know how I've get it back. But anyway, if they're interested in the books, the easiest way to get the books is Amazon. It's the cheapest place. I can't compete with Amazon, and I wrote the books, which just doesn't seem to make sense, but that's the best place to get them. So happy to take any questions from anybody online and get involved with the discussion. So bring it on.
Great stuff, mate. Well, you're really, like I say, you're really helping a lot of people out there, and it's been really great to talk to you.
Brilliant. Cheers, Kieran. You take care, mate.
A reminder, this podcast is sponsored by Kyle Financial, who are currently offering free wills for everyone, even if you're not a client. Don't be in the 60% of adults that are will. Call Kyle Financial on 0141 447 0290 or email advice@kylefinancial.co.uk for more information. I hope you all enjoyed that episode. Next week we are joined by BBC journalist and former wheelchair basketball player Martin Dugan. Can't wait for that one. See you then.